GJ Math. Welcome to the video on exercises regarding the geometric sequence. Here are the questions that's going to be covered in this video. You can click on the timestamps if you want to skip to certain questions. But yeah, please try them. Give yourself a mark, an accurate mark, and then see at the end how you would have scored if this was a test. Enjoy. Let's look at question 1. Here's a geometric sequence, 6, 12, 24, all the way up to 3072. Determine the nth term. So I know that A is equal to 6, R is equal to 12 divided by 6 gives me 2. So I'm just going to put my list there, but I'm not going to fill in the bottom two for question A. So question A, I know it's Tn equals A times R to the power n minus 1. So the nth term is just 6 in a bracket 2n minus 1. Just leave it like that. Never, ever, ever multiply the 6 and the 2 because the exponents are not the same. That's your final answer. Question B, what is the value of the fifth term? So now that I have a nth term, I can just replace n with 5. And I'm looking for Tn. So I can say T5 is equal to 6 times 2 to the power 5 minus 1. Just type that in your calculator, and then you would see the answer is 96. Okay, question C. Which term is equal to 768? I'm taking my Tn formula from question A, and now I know I'm looking for n, and I know Tn is 768. Okay, so I'm just going to fill that in. 768 equals 6 times 2 to the power n minus 1. Going to divide both sides by 6 to start off with. 128 is equal to 2 to the power n minus 1. Now please use the shift fact button on your calculator and you will see 128 equals shift fact gives you 2 to the power 7. And then bases are the same, I can drop them. So 7 plus 1 is equal to n. Therefore, 768 is the 8th term in this sequence. Question D, how many terms are there in the sequence? Now I know the sequence goes up until 3072, and that would then be my Tn value, 3072. And now I can just do exactly the same as question C to just figure out how many terms are there. So question D, just going to say 3072 is equal to 6 times 2 to the power n minus 1. Step 1, divide both sides by 6, and I can see this is 512. Then right side just stays the same. If I now say 512 equals shift fact, it's going to tell me it's 2 to the power 9 is equal to 2 to the power n minus 1. Bases are the same, drop them, and then I can say therefore 9 plus 1 is equal to n, and n is then equal to 10. So please remember to answer the question, how many terms are there in the sequence? There are 10 terms. So sometimes that doesn't count a mark, but don't take a chance. If your teacher's going to put that on the memo, you are going to lose a mark if you don't answer the question. Okay, how did you guys do? Please mark with me. So for question 1, I said it would be 1 mark because it's literally just subbing in. There's no thinking. Question B, the value of the fifth term, you're going to mark for putting in n as 5 and then getting the answer. C would be 3 marks because this is getting a bit more advanced because you need to prime factorize. So I'm going to get a mark for subbing in Tn. I'm going to get a mark for the 2 to the power 7 and then for my answer. Okay, so now the next one, I'm going to get a mark for subbing in the 3072 at the right place. I'm going to get a mark for 2 to the power 9 and then for there are 10 terms. So this mark might move there if your teacher is very nice. Sometimes both of those steps count a mark. Okay, how did you guys do? Please give yourself a mark out of 9 and just see, did it make sense? This is a very common question, so please make sure that you understand what's going on here. Let's look at another one of these. Question 2. So now it's the same type of question. Structure, everything's the same, but it now has negatives and your R value is going to be a fraction because these values are getting very small. So let's start the same way. Tn equals n equals a equals r equals. I can see a is 640. I can see r is minus a half in this case. Now, Question A is different. They don't ask me to get the Tn formula, but please do. It's just going to make the other parts of the sum so much easier. So to start off question A, I'm going to say Tn is equal to A times R to the power n minus 1. Just leave it like that. That's my Tn formula. Now I can see what they're asking me. They are asking me, what is the value if n is 7? So just going to say T7 would then be equal to 640, and then minus a half to the power 7 minus 1. Calculator tells me that answer is going to be 10. Believe it or not, that whole thing just equals 10. Question B, which term has a value of minus 5 over 64? So which term? I'm looking for the position and has a value of minus 5 over 64. So I can fill that in. I'm going to use my Tn formula and just see what it gives me. So minus 5 over 64 is equal to 640 times negative half to the power unknown. I need to figure that out. So first step, divide both sides by 640. Okay, please do that on the calculator. So 8192 is what the calculator says. And then this stays as negative a half to the power n minus 1. Okay, so now you need to prime base that. Later on in the year, you're going to use logs, but for now in January, you don't know logs yet, unless your teacher is very proactive and taught all of you guys about logs. So please type in your calculator 8192 equals shift fact. And then it will tell you the answer is 2 to the power 13. But because this was a fraction, I'm just going to say instead of 2, I'm just going to say this is a half. And there was a minus. I can't just ignore it. So it is actually minus a half to the power 13 gives me that. You're welcome to test it, type it in again, and see if you get the same answer. Okay, so now, why did I put the minus there? Because the right-hand side had a minus to start with. So now my bases are exactly the same. I can drop them and therefore say n is equal to 13 plus 1. So n is equal to 14. Which term has a value of minus 5 over 64? The 14th one. Okay, how many terms are there in the sequence? I can see they are asking me for n, how many terms, or what's the position of the last term. So I can just fill in this as my Tn value. This is question C. I'm going to start, do exactly the same as in question B. My Tn value is just a bit smaller. I wanted to say bigger because it looks bigger, but it's a fraction, so it's way smaller. Okay, 640 minus a half to the power n minus 1. Step 1 again, divide by 640 on both sides. That will then simplify to a massive number, 32768 equals minus a half to the power n minus 1. Okay, I made a little mistake. My calculator did not say it was 5 over, it said it was minus 1 over that number. Once again, I need to shift fact that 32,000, so ignore the minus, ignore the fraction, just type in 32768 equals shift fact, and then, like I discussed with the other one, I'm going to say it's minus a half to the power 15, not 2 to the power 15 like your calculator says. Okay, now bases are the same. I can drop them. So n is actually equal to 16, but this was a word sum. How many terms are there in the sequence? Therefore, 16 terms in the sequence. Okay, just write nicer than I am. Okay, perfect. Once again, let's look at the marks. Okay, question 1, I'll get a mark for getting my Tn formula and then for getting 10. Okay, so if you skip the first line and just immediately sub in the 7, you are also going to get the mark. So let's swap that mark, let's put it there. Okay, question B, which term has a value? So going to get a mark for subbing in, a mark for 13, and then a mark for n is actually equal to 14. Last one, going to get a mark for subbing in, a mark for 15, and then there are 16 terms. I'm going to get a mark. How did you guys do? What did you score out of 8? Question 3. So now we're getting to the more advanced sums. The previous ones was just, this is the formula, sub in the correct place, get the answer. Now it is pulling on a little bit more deeper knowledge of geometric sequences. Now what's very important, and what's the big difference between geometric and arithmetic, now it's not term 2 minus term 1, which would give you D, it's term 2 over term 1, and that would be equal to term 3 over term 2. So whenever you see a question like this with find for x if it is geometric, please write down that formula and start with that. So remember, right over left equals right over left. If you don't start right, you will be wrong. Okay, let's actually use it with the sum, and please remember brackets later in the sum, because my term 1 is x plus 6. It's not just x and then the 6 is separate, it's one thing. So term 2 in this case would just be x, but term 1 is x plus 6. That is all equal to term 3 over term 2. So now algebra again, I need to cross multiply. When do I cross multiply? If there's an equal between two fractions. Okay, and there's nothing else in the sum. Then I can cross multiply. So I'm going to say this is x squared, this is x minus 9, and x plus 6. If I FOIL this out, I'm going to get x squared plus 6x minus 9x minus 54. So bring the x's to the right, to the left, and keep the numbers on the right. Then I would see x squared minus x squared is just cancelled. And then 9x, if I take it over, minus 6x gives me 3x equals minus 54. If I divide that, I am going to get negative 18. Okay, so the question asked me to find for x. Okay, I did. X is minus 18. But it didn't stop there. It said, and the nth term. So when you see that, please then go and write down the original pattern, but then also fill in your answer. So I know this is minus 18 plus 6. This is then just minus 18, and minus 18 minus 9. So minus 18 plus 6 gives me minus 12, minus 18, and then minus 27. So if I look at, is this really geometric? R is term 2 divided by term 1, which gives me 3 over 2. And I can test it to say, okay, but if I say minus 27 over minus 18, what is that? It's also 3 over 2. So to answer their final question, Tn equals minus 12, 3 over 2 to the power n minus 1. Let's see where you would have gotten marks. Okay, firstly, if you started the sum correctly, you'll definitely get a mark. Then I would say for getting the minus 18, you would get a mark. For getting the right sequence, you would get a mark. And then for writing the answer for them. Okay, but that's only 4. So sometimes this would count 4. Maybe for your correct foiling out and trinomial, you would get another mark. So remember, this is all dependent on your teacher, what she feels, how difficult your tests and things, and then she can shuffle the marks a little bit. Okay, how did you do out of 5? Okay, so now we get to the last question. So this is your level 4 or your most difficult question that they can ask you for this section of the work. Okay, and this is what you really can expect in exams, specifically in an IEB section B question. But let's do it slowly and discuss it and see how it went. Okay, so x, y, and 8 is a geometric sequence. So whenever they tell me that, I am going to use T2 over T1 equals T3 over T2. And the other part is an arithmetic sequence. So then I'm going to do T2 minus T1 equals T3 minus T2. This is going to end up in a simultaneous equation. So I need to now first find ways to get equations from this. And this is the way you're going to do it. So T2 y over x must equal 8 over y. Once again, I have fractions with an equal in between. I'm going to cross multiply. So y squared is equal to 8x. That is equation 1. Just going to change color so it makes sense. Now term 2, x plus 1 minus term 1 must be equal to term 3 minus term 2. Okay, brackets are super important in this, otherwise you lose marks for things that you actually know. Okay, x plus 1 minus 1 is just x. Y, there isn't another y, so I can just do that. And then plus 1 minus x, this minus is going to go in. So in actual fact, it's going to be plus 1 minus 1, which is nothing. This is then just minus x. So there I can say this is 2x, which would equal y. That is equation 2. Okay, simultaneous equations. Please tell your teacher what you are doing. I am going to say sub 2 into 1, sub 2 into 1. And that would give me bracket squared equals 8x. I figured out that y was actually equal to 2x. So just FOIL out those, or not FOIL, just distribute the squared in. So 2 squared is 4, and x squared minus 8x equals 0. I can take out a common factor. That's x minus 2 equals 0. So therefore x would equal 0, or x would equal 2. Okay, the question was to solve x and y. So now I'm just going to go to my easiest equation, equation 2, and I'm going to say, but if I sub those two values in, y would equal 2 times 0, which would just be 0. Or y would equal 2 times 2, so y could equal 4. And there we go. That would answer their question. So is it a geometric sequence? Let's test. So if it is all the zeros, let's see if it works. 0, 0, and 8 is a geometric sequence. That's not true. Okay, so I can actually then put a does not equal sign there. So even though algebraically the answer could be 0 and 0, that does not form a geometric sequence. So I know that is not the answer I'm looking for. So if I say x is 2, y is 4, and then the 8 was therefore the geometric sequence, yes, that does form a geometric sequence. So now I know that's true. Let's see where you would get the 6 marks. Definitely for that equation, getting equation 1, for that equation, getting equation 2, and then for getting the right answer. So that set of answers and that set of answers. This could easily go up if your teacher feels like it, but I think 6 is a pretty average score for this type of sum. How was this? Was this as tricky as I made it sound, or did you guys fly through this? Please let me know in the comments how well you did for this exercise, and that will make me realize if I should make another video on this or if you are fine. Thanks for watching, and if this helped you, please share this with someone, and yeah, consider subscribing so you're on top of any new videos that come up.
If this video helped you, please like and subscribe.
JJ man.